Do you like conversation on a variety of topics? Feel like no one wants to talk about the things that interest you? Tired of only hearing the same political, sports, or catastrophe talk? Yeah, we feel that way too. Join two high-functioning geeks as they discuss just about anything under the sun. We can't tell you what we'll be talking about each week because we don't know where our brains will take us. It will be an interesting conversation though, so hang on and join us. Here comes the Relentless Geekery. Good morning, Alan.
Yes, I still haven't found Christmassy things to share, so I guess
I'll have to send you all the library I collected a couple years ago.
okay. I would appreciate that because I think that they're cross-platform easy and stuff like that. And let me turn off a whole bunch of other stuff so that I have all the bandwidth to dedicate to
Right.
our little podcast. Okay.
Well, you notice my background looks very Christmassy, but if you look real close at the Christmas tree, it's Marvel characters.
I do see that. I'm seeing Groot or maybe I'm trying to think
Yeah.
exactly. Okay. And distorted versions of them. So they're elfin versions of things. All
Yes,
right.
yes.
That's fun.
And then I got my Santa hat on today.
Very good. So yeah, boy, I give me a moment. Let me see if I can, I gotta have something better than the Northern Lights. I don't want to ever do one where it's, two in a row, the same thing.
Right, yeah.
How about a library? Have we had a
Libraries.
library?
Library's always good on a cold winter day when it's wishing
Exactly.
for snow.
40 something exactly. So
look what I got. I got holiday cupcakes. They're limited edition. So that means if I keep them for 25 or 30 years, they'll be worth money, right? Because it's limited edition.
yes. And the sad thing about that is I know I've seen scientific studies where they like took a Twinkie and did indeed leave it alone for decades, and it was still standards wise fresh enough to eat. So
Yeah.
whatever is Twinkie, I don't know about cupcakes, but I'm pretty sure that like there's no more real food in those. They're all like trisodium cupcake ate and stuff like that. They're made out of chemical things that simulate frosting and simulate brown cake and stuff like that with a little cream filling that who knows what that's been for a long time.
But it's Christmas, so it doesn't really count.
That's true. Well, yeah, I try to get as many petroleum products into me as possible.
Right.
Like all the microplastics. Oh my God. It's kind of funny. Some people really, my younger brother loves ding dongs, for instance, and it's just the right amount of chocolate and cake and filling for him. And so many things are too sweet for me, or they just taste fake and plasticky.
Yes.
And so it's like, I'll take one, but he'll like go through a box. And wow, I don't know how people's taste buds, there's no accounting for how various different things are, hot, sweet, whatever else it might be. And yet that artificial thing, especially where they like coat your mouth, that you can feel that whatever they've done to simulate fat, all the oleesters or whatever, it makes me feel like I got to get it out. You know what I mean? Like a cat going with a hairball or something like that. So,
honestly, I'll probably take a couple bites of one of them and I probably won't even finish that one and I'll give the other to somebody else or throw it away. It was just, I got Winter Wonderland hot cocoa. I'm like, ooh, it's not that good either.
It's funny. I don't know. With the holidays, it's like, let's try some pumpkin spice. Let's do, my Colleen, for instance, she's a purist about coffee, and there's all kinds of Christmas brews, if you will. And I've gotten her a couple, and after a while I've stopped because she doesn't care about the cinnamon and clove. She doesn't care about all the additives. She really just wants the straight up coffee.
Agreed.
And I guess there's Christmas beers, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I think I like things that taste of Christmas, but I like make me a cookie. Don't take something that I already like and get me Christmas Diet Dr. Pepper or something like that.
Cookies. Cookies are so subjective because we get cookies from people, and I went to an event where they were doing a fundraiser selling cookies, and almost every time it's like, yeah, none of these are that good. It's not worth they just don't taste good. I don't know what people do.
Yeah. What my solution for that is, I love baking, and I just revived the thing last year because I hadn't done it for a long time. My mom had a real good recipe for like chocolate chip cookies, Toll House chocolate chip cookies. But instead of making them only with chocolate chips, I get the mint chocolate chip and the butterscotch and the dark chocolate and whatever else it might be. And then I make a variety of them, and I'm not the devil that then tries to put in, mix them all together so you don't know whether you're going to get the bittersweet versus the milk chocolate. And most of them you can tell that they give, like the mint, it's green. You might be able to tell, but they've been a hit when I brought them because it's not only cookies, it's a variety. And I guess the base cookie is the right amount of crunch and chew that it tastes okay as the delivery mechanism
Right.
for these various other flavors. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
That's kind of the same way they talk about doing specimens in the petri dishes in laboratories.
exactly. You put a little couple dots there. Let's see how the E. coli
Right.
strain XYZ grows over here. Exactly.
Right. So hey, before we talk more Christmas stuff, you were talking about you just researched and got a VPN. So I'm curious what you're researching up, because my VPN came with a whole package with my antivirus, my password protection, and all that stuff. So
right. So I'm not super secure. I have my router has, I've got everything set up at home so that I'm really pretty safe here. Though I have all the right appropriate things with the router, where I do things through proxy. I do things through, I always go to secure websites. You can always see the HTTPS and that it does all the negotiations. So I'm pretty sure that's okay. But they've become more and more intrusive with how many trackers are working on you. And there's places where, like when you go to Facebook, and the web has always had this. Every single browser, I can't say that. There's some that specialize in not having this stuff. They have little pixels or ways of tracking based on your IP address or your movement. You develop a fingerprint. It's obvious. Hey, if I'm always going to the comic book site and then check my investments, and then I go to Facebook, after a while they're pretty sure that whatever my IP address is me. So I've been not only at home, I've been out traveling. As you know, this whole last year has been being out in California, and my parents didn't have all those things set up that I did. So I tried more armoring my laptop, but it still was when I'm in the airport and I'm using a free connection, when
right.
I'm just out at McDonald's, a coffee shop, a library, where I've ended up at various different times while I'm waiting for other things to happen. I just was seeing enough suspicious activity, not only in tracking me, but just thank God I didn't have anything where at one point when we were moving stuff up for Colleen's son, Tim, in Wisconsin, we stayed at a hotel that right after we stayed there, things were charged to my credit card because I had used the credit card for doing something there. And like everybody, there's always the possibility for sniffers, for people that are monitoring internet traffic on an open line, if you will, where there's no encryption. And I whatever I was using didn't seem to be successful enough. I had been using let's see, OmniVPN, NordVPN. I had tried various different ones, and a couple of them are inexpensive or free. They're open source, which usually I kind of trust because I like the idea that open source is not a proprietary thing, that it doesn't really get tested. Open source gets tested by everyone,
Right.
and they really are usually able to determine that the encryption level is fine. There's no man in the middle attacks possible and stuff. And it's kind of funny. I really love this stuff, but it's not easy to talk about it without giving a whole bunch of background as to most people, the internet just works. But if you really understand what's going on with 7-layer protocol and where you are physically and virtually and all that kind of stuff, there's lots of things that have to work well to get you where you want to go, all the DNS naming and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of things because the internet it was based on openness. You know what I mean? The whole point of the internet was we're going to get this packet from here to here without fail. And in order to do that, here's how the addressing scheme works and so forth. Baking in security afterwards to establish secure connections, to establish encryption, to start to have all that stuff was an add-on. And unless you configure it well and unless you keep it updated, it deteriorates over the course of time. You know what I mean? So I didn't try every VPN out there and do my own research, but I have an idea of what I'm looking for. I really wanted it to be that some of the VPNs, the reason I shied away from using them was you put it in place and like, I sure am safe. And then everything is twice as slow. Everything, yes. And like certain things just don't work. Right. If you're like trying to get tickets through Ticketmaster and you get to the payment page and the pop-up won't come up because it's blocking pop-ups, and that's not a VPN itself, but there's again layers, and in your browsers you can have ad blockers, content blockers, privacy badger that someone mentioned. When I mentioned this online, a whole bunch of people chimed in with their good stuff, their favorites. And I trust, for instance, the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, that they've created this thing and have kind of like my same standards, where their heart is in the same place in terms of the right amount of security and privacy, and that it's not open source built, but that the way it works is they maintain blacklists and whitelists, and it's not just you, it's also the world. And in fact, a number of investments that I'm into, CloudStrike, they are good because they don't just try to say, we'll maintain our list of who the good and bad actors are, the good and bad DNS addresses and all that kind of stuff. We will let the whole world feed us that information and put in the algorithms that do the right amount of security without over blocking. Because I've had things like a whole things get going from whitelist to blacklist, and then an entire top level IP address, everything underneath it gets blocked. And so this bad guy was on the same thing as National Geographic was, and all of a sudden, why can't I get to? So I read there's people that their job, their joy is doing all this stuff, testing how it works.
Let me interject real quick before you talk about your research and what you did. So two things. One of the hardest thing with the VPNs is, like you said, blocking and not blocking, because you go to Ticketmaster and you may even know and understand how to add a website whitelisted into your VPN and your antivirus and all of those. But what it's using is another third-party service to do the payment. And so that's not, or it's using a third-party service, which is also using part of this other company's service. So you may get part of it, but not the other part. And it's very frustrating. And even I understand what I'm doing and how it works and what I'm looking for. And there are sites when I'm like, oh yeah, I have to turn it completely off when I go to this site because I can't get it whitelisted no matter what I do. And that's a danger.
Trying to start to maintain a little list, like a paper list off to the side of my thing, where it's like, before you go in using Safari, or I not only use Safari, though that's my preferred one, but Chrome and Firefox and Opera and Edge and the major ones, DuckDuck, and it's kind of funny. Some browsers, they're inseparable from their search engine or whatever else it might be, and yet there's a big difference between DuckDuckGo is a site, not its own browser.
Right.
So but I see exactly what you're saying. Early on, because places all didn't want to maintain their payment system where it had to have that level of real security, that they couldn't have somebody come in and steal credit card numbers from them because they didn't know what they were doing. So there started to be those various different places that they handed off at the end. Well, if that handoff is suspicious, and suspicious doesn't have to mean anything bad, it just is, oh, you're going to another site, I don't trust this other site as much as the one you're currently on. It's that. So I see, and so as a consumer, I bump into that. You're trying to do it programmatically, that whatever you're working on to try to make sure that your payment systems, a lot of people have a storefront app, and then that storefront app, a big part of its job is not only making sure that it's safe, but making sure that the world knows, don't stop me, don't block me. You know what I mean?
Right. And with that, before you talk about all your research, you mentioned open source, and that for the lesser knowledgeable geeks of VPN, just because it's free doesn't mean it's open source. And especially if it's free, question it whether it's trustworthy, because there are, especially on your phones, there are companies out there that will make an app. Oh, free VPN will block all this stuff. And what they're really doing is gathering everywhere you go and your information.
All your traffic.
Because they're really hackers. There's things you got to be careful. That's why what you did, the research. I mean, I use the VPN attached to my Kaspersky Total Suite antivirus, and it's also my bank vault for all my passwords. So it was like a whole big suite. A couple years ago, I looked into it. It was highly recommended, multiple trustworthy sites, and I've just kind of kept it, all those years.
So that's its own good recommendation, that it's been around for a while, that it has multiple, of course, that's what I'm discovering now, is that now that I've adopted this VPN, I myself don't use a password manager except what's built into Safari. And it's got a good one. It suggests appropriately dense passwords and keeps track of them for you with a master password that lets you get to everything. And So sadly, there's OnePass, LastPass, there's a number of password managers out there, and I think it was LastPass, right, that just got penetrated. So here's the one that's purporting to, I'll save all your passwords, I'll remain ultra secure, and then you can use me everywhere you go. And they've been penetrated twice.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it makes sense. What would be a bigger hacker target than the repository for everyone's passwords everywhere?
Which speaks to a couple things that, you can't just blindly trust everything out there just because it's a big company, because they're the ones getting touched more. And the power of our computers now make, if you have a 6-character password that's a dictionary word, you might as well just leave it wide open. That's not even a password anymore. I mean, my password bank that Kaspersky has, a couple years ago, it defaulted to 8 characters when it created a random password. And then they changed it up to 10 and then 12. And now by default, it generates 16-character random passwords with capitals, lowercase, numbers, symbols, and way more symbols than letters and numbers. So you can't memorize them. And if you do that, I'm going to make a password I memorized, you're done. You're hacked, already. Right. And I had that discussion, oh my gosh, with somebody said, oh, well, I'm just sharing this on Facebook. It's fun. Right. And you just gave them the information that your account exists, that you grew up on this road, you had a dog named this. They're going to go guess your password on your bank. And it was Google. That's right. Me and my cousin are selling stuff on Facebook. And immediately when you post something to sell, within 30 seconds, you'll get 4 or 5 people saying, hey, I really want this. Give me your phone number and we'll set up a time. And it's that fast.
Right.
And then
that's a standard attack. Exactly.
Yeah. And almost everybody on Facebook uses Google Phone to protect their phone number. So they say, hey, I want you to call me, but it's asking for the Google ID code. It just got sent to your phone. Give that to me and you can call me. Well, what they're doing is resetting your password and getting control of your Google voice number.
Right, there you go. So, and then charge things to it, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. That's right.
So anyway,
it's honestly, I'll digress in an interesting way. So while I'm getting a little bit more secure and paranoid and so forth, long ago, any number of big smart people, the Schneier of the world, had books about, honestly, privacy's already gone. If you've had any presence all the way back to the days of BBS's, CompuServe, AOL, etc., anything you've ever done on the internet is in the Internet Archive. This thing roams around, spiders the web, and takes snapshots of everything. So even if you think that all you did was post to the kitten grooming website, it's out there for people to find in some way. So I just read an article in Wired magazine about the dark web and how at one time the Pirate Bay was the biggest purveyor of naughty stuff. Drugs and I don't know about munitions, but all kinds of things that you would find difficult walking into a store and buying, you could get them by putting in Bitcoins or anonymous fund sources. And they eventually found the guy that did the Pirate Bay. Well, a whole bunch of people were vying to then be the next big site. And apparently, I think it's called, maybe it's Alpha Bay, but at least Alpha is involved. The main guy, Alpha 02, that created this was really a good coder. So everything about how he built his new dark web site really was as good as you could get, with no leaks, no good encryption, et cetera, et cetera. But the way that they caught him was, it turns out that this guy is maybe late 20s. You don't get a late spontaneous hacker at late 20s. They've probably been doing it since they were 13. And they were young and bold, and they were in the Legion of Doom or any number of hacker groups. And they might have, unfortunately, everywhere I go, I'm Alan Baltus. And back when college, I was boy with brain in a jar, and you just kind of like fall in love with a nom de plume, and you use that everywhere. Well, right. So did Alpha 02. He had done all kinds of things in all kinds of places until he became aware of, I really need to go kind of below the surface and live in the murk. They were able to track all kinds of information into his past to be able to find that there's probably got a guy named Alexander Chavez, if I remember right. And of course, he kept talking about how he was affiliated with the Russians and probably lived in Europe and so forth. No, all that was a ruse, social engineering wise. He actually lived in Thailand in a nice anonymous little house, but it was he made so much money that he had like money stuffed into the walls of his house, money in stacks on the floor. If you ever came into his house, you would know this guy isn't legit. So that's that whole way of saying there really is a reason to be not paranoid but cautious, because if you're a good actor, they don't care about me, they care about knowing, hey, I just bought a lot of Christmas CDs and now I'm going to see if he wants more. And you know, and people make fun of that, like, hey, I bought a humidifier. Apparently all the humidifier places think I want a collection of humidifiers because now I'm getting all the humidifier ads. No, I needed the one, thank you. So it's my doing this. And another big theory about this, and the, like I said, I really have big fans. You know, the gentleman Phil Zimmer. I really should be able to, like, I don't know these guys, but I know of them, and actually I've had some conversations at HackerCons and stuff with them. They're really good at. It isn't about being perfect necessarily, but it is about, like, just why do you have things to secure your house? You're not trying to be like a moated castle, but you are trying to say if 90% of what happens bad is opportunistic crime, then at least don't be the most open, stupid, come and get me type guy. Put up the sign that says, I have a security system. Have a doorbell that when it rings, your dog barks, the fake dog bark, if you want to do that. All those little things are going to say, I think I'll just go down the street and I'll see who's a little bit more open. And I don't have to worry about getting mauled by this guy's bull mastiff and stuff like that. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do is, I don't want my job to be full-time security and be paranoid about I never go anywhere without making sure. I hope I haven't paid a huge penalty. I've never been lax about this, but I've also never been totally locked down. I know I'm out there. Alan Baltus, if you do Google, if I ego surf and look for Alan Baltus, I'd be like, well, Alan Baltus posted to this library site and he was on Jeopardy and he's in Mensa, and you can immediately put together a little footprint for me. You know what I mean? So I went and read all kinds of articles about VPNs from places that I think do good research. The CNETs, the Forbes, Tom's Hardware, you know, where they have their hobbyist and up, or they're professional and they're trying to give you, like Ziff Davis runs multiple magazines like PC Mag and stuff like that. And they do these kinds of reviews all the time. What's the best hard drive to buy for the money and all that kind of stuff. So, and then as I read the reviews, I'm looking for, well, a lot of what they emphasized here is exactly what I would emphasize, or they did it from a business context, and it doesn't really matter to me as a consumer, a prosumer, if you will. So I'm looking for where their criteria match. You know, that's their term. It's not like, oh, I'm elevating myself. And so from multiple places, then you get the idea of, well, there's a whole bunch of them that figure into the top 5 everywhere. So I'm probably going to go with one of those guys.
Right.
And then my biggest criteria were, I really wanted to lose the minimum amount of speed. And so in that case, it's kind of funny. You want to think that the internet is just in the cloud and it's equal everywhere, but there still is a certain amount of wire length, co-location in more places around the United States. You know, the way a VPN works is that you attach to a server, it encrypts all your traffic so that your stuff is never in the open on the web. And if you have the only server available is in Thailand, then there's a lag because you're going to go across the world back and forth. Well, some of them have 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 servers all around the United States. And so you use the one that's physically closest to you. And if you know a little bit about how the backbone of the United States works, then you say, well, where's the nearest big point of presence, the biggest hub for various different carriers? And you're like, I'd rather be in Washington, D.C. or L.A. or, you know what I mean, where you know that there's a lot of traffic than in Arkansas. You know what I mean? Little Rock is just not going to be, but it's kind of funny when you do internet speed tests, you can see that there really are some things that are illusory, like maybe actually Arkansas would be good because what's there? Walmart. And they made sure that the state's infrastructure was way upgraded so that they'd be able to have good corporate data. So having said that, ExpressVPN was the one that seemed to be, it had, they test for all different kinds of exposures, leaks. It's a kind of traffic that they can throw through it and see if there's anything that, if they try to attack it, and they have their own white hat hackers that do these things, was there any way that they were able to penetrate? ExpressVPN has AES 256, you know, the highest level of encryption that's commercially available. And as we get more and more mighty computers, quantum computing, pretty soon it's going to be, well, a hack that used to take 7 weeks to run, and so you can not worry about it. Now it's going to take 7 minutes, and then they'll just do a every single character stream in 256, every dictionary attack,
Right.
every when I think of, I think I've mentioned this before, one of the ways that I generate passwords is not only randomly through the password thing, but I have song lyrics. They stay in my mind, and so I'll type out like the words to a certain lyric, and maybe don't start with the first verse but the second, so it'll be a little bit more obscure, or capitalize certain letters, either the first or the second, or randomly, and then you got to kind of remember what pattern you use. But anytime that you establish a standard and use a pattern, that's exactly what the computer will say. Well, he did 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Do you know what I mean? You have to be like, it's got to be memorable to you as a human being, and yet not that the computer can say, gotcha, I figured you out.
and the important thing here is, because things keep progressing, you can't, like you said, just get something, install it, and be done. You got to update them. You got to work with them a little bit. It takes some work. And just because ExpressVPN is the #1 right now, they may not update as much and may not keep up, and something else will come in and take its place in a couple years. So there's a balance there too, because again, none of these are completely 100% secure and going to solve everything. But you know what popped into my mind real quick? Sorry, my mind bounced.
Oh.
Remember the old movies when people would be cracking codes? It'd be like 7 characters and they'd match individual characters. Oh, we got that one. Like it was a Wheel of Fortune game or something.
Exactly that.
That's not how it
works.
works.
Numbers falling down like Tetris. It's like, oh, you got it.
Oh, you got the 3rd and 4th out of 7. Good for you. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. But anyway.
Another thing that gave me confidence in ExpressVPN was that they've been high rated for a long time, like decades. So they've survived all the attention that comes from being the top rated one, because then immediately people want to see, well, I'm the one that beat ExpressVPN or whatever else it might be. And in fact, I think that some of the other VPNs have had problems with that when Nord was really big, Surfshark, trying to think, others by name that I can start naming. It was a 13-year-old hacker's, like, the way he got his bones was to say, I broke them. You know what I mean? So it's I intend to, just like you want to do a review every once in a while of, am I using the best browser? Am I using the best search engine? Am I using the best security? I gave myself that little tickler of, next year in the lull after Christmas, I think I'll review VPNs and see if this is still the one I want. I got like a year subscription, so I'm going to learn it. And then there's a certain amount, of course, like anything else, there's a stickiness that comes from, it works just like I like, and I know where its control panels are, and I know what kind of alerts it puts out. And so it's non-intrusive, except when it needs to be, because like, boo, boo, you're getting attacked, that kind of thing. It's kind of okay to have, I should check my auto insurance. I should check, you know what I mean? There's certain things that you don't realize time works against you sometimes, that you become fat, dumb, and happy, and you really should do those reviews, because there's always new tech coming along, and there's always that kind of like deterioration of old tech where they get set in their ways or something. So for now, the only things that I've noticed, it's not perfect. It does still have, like, it interferes with certain installers, so and certain malware. So I like malware fighters. I like Mac malware bytes and Sophos, and it started to have like, okay, I'm having to revalidate myself like every time I log on. That didn't used to happen. So what's happening? My traffic that it itself uses to talk to its whitelist, update my bad definitions and stuff like that. I got a feeling that that's getting blocked, muddled, whatever, and I gotta think of how I'm going to do that. Am I going to like turn my VPN off at 2 a.m, let these things do their updates, and then turn it back on at 3? Does it have a feature that lets me turn it on and off on a timed schedule? And then once I do that, it's like, well, that's hacker hour. That's what all the hackers do, it is at 2 a.m, because they know that's how the updates happen.
Right.
So I'm just trying to it's not so much, it's kind of funny. I've been very much experimenting at home to see what it does, but the real test is going to be, now I'm going to have it on my laptop, and I'm going to be going to California in just a couple of days, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's it like in an airport. Does it send me alerts? Does it still run as fast as I want it to? What's it like when I'm at my parents' house and I don't have to worry about the ISP that they have and the router that they have, and that they didn't set a lot of this up, but I'll still be safe there or in my hotel. And so this will be the acid test. You know what I mean? I'll find out if I chose wisely, or if it's going to be, wow, I can't live like this. I can't. I'm fast enough in how I flit amongst various different, my email, my Facebook, my spreadsheets, whatever I'm doing. I can't have it be that work becomes torturous because I'm
Yes.
safe.
And that's the problem with the VPNs is they can, there's a balance because you can make it super secure and tight, but then you can't even get to google.com or msn.com. You know, it blocks everything. It blocks every picture, every video, every ad, every, you know, and it's every link, and you just can't work and operate. But then if you just turn it off, well, what's the point?
What's the point?
And
Exactly.
something, most of the people listening, I'm hoping, understand this, but most of us use like a cable modem, which modem doesn't really fit, but that's the term we use now. So we'll just move on. But what they do then is they hook right into the cable modem via Wi-Fi or something like that. And that is so dangerous because those companies, Spectrum, we unfortunately have to use Spectrum here, and AT&T is another, you know, what they do is they buy 5,000 of the same boxes from a company, and that company sets the username and password the exact same on all of those boxes. So all the hackers know, hey, this area is Spectrum. Everybody in this IP range is using this particular box. We can hack into it. And so if you hook directly up to your cable modem without any router or any other protection, you're just wide open to the net and you're screwed. So I have a router that is password protected that they have to get into the cable modem into my router to get into my network. And I've got security on that along with security on the computers. So that's,
in fact, that's not, you know, often there's certain things that I read early on about security that I kind of adopted as my mantras. One of the things you want to do is you don't have a huge, big, tough wall, but then if they penetrate that, they're in and they have free run. You want it to be layered so that it degrades elegantly. They might be able to get in that first layer, but then you still have other things that will slow them down enough and kind of all the levels of deterrence, all the levels of safety. And so that's kind of what I try to do too, is I have, you know, things on my router, things on my computer, have want to make sure that if I'm going to use my phone and my laptop out in the field, that can't be how they get in. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny. Long ago, I don't think I'm telling stories out of school. I was director of databases for Progressive Insurance, and we had a slammer attack. Slammer was a worm that got in through SQL database servers, and it didn't get in to Progressive. It got in because somebody was working on something at home. They weren't security tight enough. It got on their machine, and all then they had to do was come into the Progressive network, where if you were in the building, if you passed physical security, they figured you were okay. They didn't have the same, and boom, it was lots of places. And it really is so much of hacking nowadays is not only, hey, I got a fast computer, I got a dictionary attack, let's do that. It's all the social engineering that says, download this app. It's going to be able to give you, you know, free flashlight activities. You know what I mean? That was like reviled as being, that's in so many cases how bad apps got on your phone, is because who doesn't want a nice weather app? Who doesn't want a nice flashlight app? And that was their delivery system.
right.
So I'm waiting to see if, you know, I'm leaving out to say this. Competence in any particular platform is no guarantee of competence on every platform. And so here's hoping, because I look for that as well. I not only run on Mac, but on iPhone and on Windows. I wanted to make sure that all those big ones were covered. Is it covered for Linux? Is it covered? I don't want it to be that, hey, my power grid got taken over because they're running an old version of G8 or whatever. You know what I mean? There's like different operating systems that, so we'll see about, I don't want to see any suspicious things on my phone. And it's an experiment, and I hope it's not a foolish experiment. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure I picked a good one. And after one thing that seems to happen is, you know, it's not all these things trying to make them so sticky in terms of how useful they are. They also have things like, does it have a deinstaller so that you can really, really get rid of it if you don't want it anymore, instead of it being, it keeps prompting me to go from the home to the premium version. I thought I uninstalled it entirely. What the hell is it put on my machine that it's like still got a hook into me? And I just read, you know, there's any number of things, anything that works at the low level on your computer, is a natural thing for the hackers to look at that say, if you're using a disk utility that's going to be doing directory cleanup or whatever else it might be, you're already giving it permissions to do pretty serious disk stuff. And all we got to do is be able to hack not your operating system, but that utility, and then we're in.
Or offering some free utility that's some big tool that does stuff, but what it's really doing is getting rid of all the competition and
like you said.
yeah.
And well, you mentioned Kaspersky, but previous to that, McAfee had, and I don't know how much of this was ever proven, it had a reputation for both being a solution and a problem. By that meaning that it really did offer a whole bunch of different virus fighting type stuff, but it sure seemed to also be that, like, where are things coming from?
Right.
That were they creating things to create demand? Please don't. McAfee lawyers, I think it's gone now, right? Or if it's out there, it's not run by paranoid Mr. McAfee, who would now, oh, I saw you guys on a podcast and then I sued your buttocks off.
Right.
I don't, there were enough articles and enough evidence of ripple effects of where a new worm got found, and it was like, well, where did it come from? And then you kind of, well, that's suspicious, and 10 times suspicious is like, well, now there's a pattern, maybe.
Right.
And so just from, and it could all have been a social engineering campaign on the part of Kaspersky to defame McAfee and say, don't use that one, it's suspicious. And I don't know, Kaspersky, where is that out of? Like, if it's out of East Europe,
it's actually Russia, which I've kind of questioned it lately. I've been like, maybe I should. It's been a couple years. Maybe it's time to look into something else. Honestly, I've thought that. I'm like, it's worked really well, but is there something that would suit me a little better?
In some part, it's just kind of, one of the big things that people use VPNs for is they now have things, for a long time, actual DVDs have been coded for regions 1 through 7, so you can't play it everywhere that you go. Well, there's content that's like that too. You can't get to, off the top of my head, I don't know if this is true, Amazon.co.uk is not exactly the same selection and prices as Amazon.com, which is the big United States one. And there are other sites, like Amazon has Prime Video. What's on Prime Video in England might not be what's on Prime Video here. And if you really can't wait to see Doctor Who until the week after, because it first premieres on BBC and then comes here, then you use a VPN to look like you're from England instead of the United States, and then you pass their address test, if you will. Well, people use VPNs for that, to spoof addresses, because they sign into the server that says, I'm coming from the British Virgin Islands. And that's actually where ExpressVPN is based out of. And so it's like, well, are they one of those non-extradition countries? Am I like buying a Venezuelan evil VPN? You know what I mean? So the minute you go out of what you think is relatively civilized United States, there's all kinds of places that have different ideas about intellectual property rights, and that they're more regularly hacked, and they're looking for a clown like me. I think I'm being sneaky because my VPN came in so I could watch Doctor Who, and instead that now they got all my traffic for everywhere that I shop, because I tried using it for Amazon as well.
Right.
And I'm awfulizing things. It doesn't. I really don't think that that's happening with this one, and yet I'm aware that there are things out there that are like, if it's too good to be true, it probably is not true. You know what I mean? It can't be that you're going to get free, access for the next 10 years to this VPN. And don't worry, they have just the interest of humanity at heart. Anyway.
Right. Yep. All right. So, you mentioned music. We talked a bit last week, and then you created a monster of a online Facebook topic. So
I love when this happens. I throw a whole bunch of stuff onto Facebook, and sometimes it's just, hey, look, Kathleen and I went for a walk, and some people who like walking will chime in. Well, once in a while you talk about interesting topics, and you don't get 1 or 2 or 3 replies. You get like dozens and hundreds. And so I mentioned, hey, I have some standard Christmas stuff that I like listen to. But it's kind of like, just like when you listen to a Christmas radio station, Colleen often complains about this. If you hear like the same 20, 30, 40 songs, like while you're listening, while you're driving, you hear the same song come on, that's just really disheartening. There's billions of Christmas songs. Why am I hearing Mariah Carey again, et cetera, et cetera?
And why not one of the other cover versions that people have done of that song?
Exactly.
Play something a little different. Yeah.
I was heartened. While we were decorating our tree, we had Magic on, which has gone to all Christmas music, and that was one of the ones that Colleen was worried that we'd hear. Here's the same Mannheim Steamroller. Here's the same, etc. Well, we worked on the tree for hours, and we didn't seem to hear any repeats. And so I'm hoping that some radio stations have gotten the idea that actually turns people off. That it's not, I want to hear my favorites again and again. And I don't know how I really stand about this, because I am very much a non-repeat. I like new all the time. Some people, and maybe they love it. They love hearing the hits. They love hearing their same secure things. Kids start off like that. The number of times that a kid can watch their favorite Disney video would have me vomiting in the nearest restroom.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let me jump on a slight tangent, and we'll come back to Christmas music. This is related. So Spotify, first of all, Spotify is great because you can look up, like I looked up jazz Christmas, and I found some jazz Christmas albums that I've never heard. I looked up big band Christmas, and so you can do that and get that variety. But I buy and have almost everything I want to ever listen to. If I like a group, I like an album, I buy it. And so Spotify does their year-end Wrapped every year. I don't know if you've seen that, where they keep track of all this data, and then they give you this thing of, here's the artists you listen to, here's your most popular songs, here's how many minutes, here's this, that, and the other thing. So I got mine, and I think it was like 2,400 minutes for the whole year. But again,
that's
right now
you're not
I've got
listening 24/7. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, now I've got a playlist right here of Christmas music, but it's all stuff I own. It's all my CDs that I've put on MP3, and so I'm not even on Spotify most of the time. Right. My son, on the other hand, he got his Wrapped for the end of the year. He listened to something like 220,000 minutes of music. That's like 51
times as much.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 51 straight days. He's in the top 0.005% of all Spotify listeners. We took the biggest artist he listened to, and found out how much they pay average artists, and we figured up so they paid that artist more than double what we paid in fees to Spotify. So from my son, a couple artists made more money than they would have from other people or from him buying CDs. So he's like, that's my claim to fame,
There we go. You know what? I'm happy to hear anything about how some artists made money on Spotify, because the story you often hear is they're getting micropayments, and that things that are really hits, they're making nowhere near as much as the old way of release the CD, publicize it, get it into 100,000 people's hands or millions or whatever else it might be. And nowadays, from what I understand, so many of the streaming services, artists kind of have to go out on tour because that's how they make money nowadays.
Right.
And the numbers support that, despite Colin being the wonderful outlier, the statistical perversion that he is. Yeah. In many other places, it just is. It's giving it away for free, and you hope that it's enough of a lost leader that will inspire people to say, come see me when you're in your town. You know what I mean?
It almost makes me want to, at night when I'm done working and stuff, it makes me want to turn on my favorite artist on Spotify and go to bed. Just let it run all night.
Someone just mentioned that they do that for friends that have released stuff at small press stuff, if you will, they kind of like have a way of requesting it again and again and again and again, so that it builds their placement on the charts. It makes more micro payments to that person, even when they're not really listening. Right. And so there's no system, there's no game that you won't within 2 minutes have someone thinking, how can I game that system? Yeah. How can I, okay. So and I guess I'd rather that individuals doing it than there's a big combine in Bulgaria that is forcing Eurovision Song Contest winners down the throat of the public. Right.
Well,
like that kind of
didn't MMS get in trouble for that clear back in the 70s or something? There was some contest, the biggest radio station in America, and they stuffed the ballot box to win. Right. And it gave them a bad rep. Yeah.
It's kind of funny that being in Cleveland before I was here, but that happened in Chicago too. That you was like, when you hear certain ones are winning the most popular thing, it's like, I don't know anybody that listens to that amongst my friends. Oh, because they had the legion of people that sent in postcards. I love you guys. Okay.
Yeah, right. So what's some new Christmas music that you've actually listened to that you're like, oh, I'm glad someone told me about this?
It's funny. I got a whole bunch just yesterday, like 10 CDs, and I
Wow.
did everything. And so Straight No Chaser, really good.
Love
All a
them.
cappella. And like, yeah, this is, they might have more than one. And I think I now got two of their three, if I remember correctly. And they're beautiful. You know, sometimes people are just so talented, their voices are so pure, the music is so beautiful, it's like ethereal, you know what I mean? And they're very playful. You can do things with human voices that you kind of can't do with instruments. And so I that's immediately like, I'm going to hear that again. Straight No Chaser is one of the recommendations. I got a bunch of Frank Sinatra.
Ooh.
And like old crooners, if you will. I got the Rat Pack Christmas, so it's Frank and Dino and Sammy Davis Jr. and I think those are the main three, and they're very stripped down. I like complex music, and so Mannheim Steamroller, I'm all about that because there's a lot going on, but it's really cool to hear a beautiful voice sing Silent Night, and just it being again floaty and perfect. And then so and I will say this, more evidence of, people are just things are falling apart a little bit on the edges, the center cannot hold. I got a Christmas Santa Frank Sinatra Christmas album that had instead Frank Sinatra duets in it.
Wow.
And so it's like, well, I'm going to return that because I really want the Christmas one. But it's like, did you not? I guess they really don't. Did you make sure that the CD was in the right box and stuff like that?
Right.
The box was what I wanted, the CD case, not that thing. So I got Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers doing a whole bunch of Christmas duets. And it's kind of funny. His voice is very, very smooth and hers is very perky, but they combine them together in nice ways.
And that's from like the early 80s or something, isn't it?
Yeah, some of these are really old.
Yeah.
In fact, I was pleased. One of the reasons I was able to buy so many was that instead of being, hey, what's Michael Bublé's? I got his older one. So it's like $7 instead of the current one, which is 15. And in fact, a couple of the recommendations that people made were like, I asked for this specifically, what are things that you had growing up that you still listen to now? Because it just means so much. It's your family Christmas album. People made a couple of recommendations that they're not even available on CD, or if they are, it's like $35-50.
Right.
Now they're scarce collector's item type stuff, but you can get some of them streaming wise. And so I did that for a couple. Let's see. And actually, I haven't got it yet, but when you mentioned the Simeon Chorale, right? Harry Simeon.
Yep.
I haven't listened to that one yet, but I got that one. Somebody recommended the Charlie Brown Christmas album, and why can't I think of his name?
Vince Guaraldi.
Guaraldi, thank you very much. And actually, I didn't get that. I already had that one because I always wanted to be able to play Linus and Lucy. I just wanted to be able to play it whenever I wanted to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So, let's see.
I know a bassist. Well, I don't know him, but there's a bassist, Stuart Ham, that plays that two-handed on bass. He plays the bass part and then he plays the accompanying with it. And yeah, very talented.
Yeah. And again, a quick digression. So we went to see the Carl Palmer Band doing Emerson, Lake and Palmer music. It's the 50th anniversary of Welcome Back, My Friends, the show that is coming out. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. I got all excited. And he has a great guitarist who can play Keith Emerson's keyboard parts on guitar.
Wow.
Which, what? Who in the world can do that? But he also has a great bassist and Chapman stick player. And well, this is Paul Bielatovich, and this is Simon Kirk Fitzpatrick. And he played the Chapman stick, like Take a Pebble from ELP, playing all the parts. You know what I mean? The bass and the keyboard and so you can do a lot nowadays with tap guitars and Chapman sticks and stuff like that you can play the entire song by yourself, if you will. And he did it beautifully. Wow. So let's see. I already had some Brian Setzer because I really like rockabilly. Yep. And he has like we talked about this last time. He has Boogie Woogie Christmas. He has Santa's Got a Hot Rod. You know what I mean? He's got a couple of good ones.
The one song he does
that I didn't have yet.
The old Louis Armstrong, Is That You, Santa Claus? He does that one. And my daughter, when she was younger, used to giggle at that song so much. Brian Setzer's version. We'd listen to it like in rotation all the time, and she would giggle at it. So Is That You, Santa Claus?
I still love the Springsteen version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town that
Yeah.
he did in concert. And I don't think we ever made it on an album. It's the live version, but that's also got that great, like, great bass sax from Clarence Clemens.
Yeah,
And you know what I mean? It's really got soul to it. It's really a great song.
The best part is because it's live, Bruce starts laughing. You can hear him,
Yes.
and it just makes it so special. And it's got that. And we talk about this with music, that you can hit the notes. That doesn't mean that there's any energy and soul to it, and it could suck. But that alone gives that whole song some energy, and they're laughing, and I love
Absolutely.
that.
They're having a good time on stage. They're
Yes.
playing off each other. They're loving giving this to the crowd. You know what I mean? I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I say that because Def Leppard, right after the pandemic started, they came out with a Christmas song, and I'm like, oh, this will be fun and nice. And I listened to it, I said, it's an okay song, but it's kind of soulless. There's no blood to it, you know?
Yeah. It's I regularly throw in because I have a lot of them. I have, of course, Mannheim Steamroller. I have Trans-Siberian Orchestra. We went to see First Night last year, and I think it might have been they were there again, but it was like right the day after Christmas, and we were unavailable. And actually, I liked it a lot more than Colleen, so I don't know that we're going to repeat the cover band version of TSO. If we go see them, we'll go see TSO.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
I don't.
The first year I saw First Snow, I was like, wow, this is really good. It was great. And then last year, me, you, Colleen, we were looking at each other like, is it me or is there something off about this? It just is not doing
it
it.
Wasn't as good as I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And again, jumping around, we went to see the Guess Who, and every indication from everything that I could see on Ticketmaster and other places was that it was the Guess Who. It was Burton Cummings on vocals, and it was Randy Bachman maybe, and instead it was like the drummer now owns the name to the band, and he had a sound-alike guy, but nobody really sounds like Burton Cummings. You know what I mean? So I heard the songs I wanted to hear. I heard Clap for the Wolfman. I heard, anyway. Colleen, because she really loves them, was really unhappy with the bait and switch that we felt we got. That I hadn't built it up totally, but I really was like, I've never seen. Actually, here's the galling part: we stumbled onto Guess Who when they were at like a Taste of Cleveland. That we just, we went to that or Rib Fest or whatever it was, and they were one of the bands that night. And it was like, well, I would have paid money to see these guys. Instead, I paid $5 for the I Want to Eat ticket. And then we got to see the Guess Who. How cool was that?
Yeah.
And then because we had seen them, this was such a letdown. You know what I mean?
So, now, Lock 3 in Akron every year on Friday nights at summer, they do a lot of tribute bands that come in. Like for all the big major tribute bands in the country, they get. And they've had Queen and Aerosmith and Metallica and Bon Jovi and just
great music, summertime music. Yeah.
And it's all free at the amphitheater at Lock 3. So that's, even if it does suck, you can just get up and leave. You didn't pay for the ticket. But honestly, some of these bands are so good, and they go through the eras of that. Some of these bands are around for 50 years. Yeah. It's awesome.
The original band isn't doing it anymore. They do things that they can't, they can't hit the notes, or that's not part of their set list anymore. Yeah.
It's always a good time.
It's kind of funny. I think I love prog, progressive rock. Most of the time when I've been out in California, I've been very purposeful. It's visit mom, it's work on the house, et cetera, et cetera. We're getting to an interesting place of the house got all refurbished and it's now on the market. So my job is to get the last things out of the house, but it's nowhere near the boxing up and cleaning up and everything that I had been doing previous. I might have to mow the lawn, that kind of thing. So found out that a band ProgJect is going to be playing Friday night in Escondido, right near where I'm staying.
I lived in Escondido. That's where I used to live.
I did. So it's it's right in on 78, right? Right there. They're a tribute band, but they're not like aspiring musicians. They are Michael Sadler, the voice from Saga, and Rio why can't I think of Rio? Maybe it's Akamoto from Spock's Beard. They have like guys that play this music chops. The organizer is Jonathan Mover, who was like the original drummer for Marillion. These guys really got it going on, and we had seen them one time at the Kent Stage, and loved them because they're not just doing only a single band's recreation. They're picking amongst all of Prog and saying, why don't we do Heart of the Sunrise by Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
please do that
Yes.
song.
Yeah.
Why do we do? And the best of Queen, the best of ELP and Genesis and Yes and Kansas. And oh my God. So I get a chance to that'll be my little Christmas concert.
That sounds
so,
cool.
And it was one like, while I'm out there, I'm always like, well, what are the Mensa events going on? And maybe I'll be able to go to trivia night and stuff. My schedule has almost always not coincided with when their monthly gathering is or anything like that. So this really is a nice thing. And then I also found out that a comedian that I like, Carolyn Rhea, is going to be at a comedy club nearby there on Saturday night. Wow. So having had any number of times when I'm like reading and relaxing in my room, what's on TV, occasionally I think I keep threatening to go see a movie out there. And I think I've done it once in 11 months, but I actually have like social activity while I'm out there. Social. It'll be trench coat. It'll be me alone, but it's still, I don't know.
That's cool.
It's very nice to be able to put things into your holiday season that are like, I really like this. I think what I'm going to do is, again, like the venue that I'm going to is also right near the Pan Asian buffet. So I'm going to go and like glut myself on good sushi. Then I'm going to go sit in the back and enjoy prog rock and beach myself. Yes, play for me. I'm just so happy. All my senses.
But I love that because we've talked about this so often, how enjoying life and getting those experiences just adds so much. And some of these people are like, another day, another dollar, same old. Yeah, come on. Right. You don't have to do that.
If you just do, I've noticed, I think, Facebook often throws ideas for events at me. And I noticed that you do the same as I. You put interested in a whole bunch of different things. So you just have a little tickler for,
yes,
maybe I will go to that tree lighting. Maybe I will go to that, wine tasting or whatever else it might be. And another thing that's wonderful about tribute bands is, last time Genesis was in Columbus, it was like, I'm going to drive to Columbus and I'm going to pay $150 a ticket. It was just too much for me.
Yeah.
I love Genesis. And I was like, boy, it just doesn't sit well with me, even though it might be their last tour. ProgJect was like $22. You know what I mean? Carol Rhea is going to be 17. That's not nothing. It's not free, like the Lock 3 cool things you talked about. But that is, I got a 20 in my pocket. I can go see this thing for $20. That just seems like the impulse buy, and no doubt if I want to see it, I can do it.
And the really best ones do everything they can to sound and look just like who they're doing the tribute for. So it's not just a band up there covering songs badly. It sounds note for note. The way I know, I saw a Rolling Stone cover band, and this guy had Mick Jagger down. I mean, you could have
Rooster Strut.
Oh yeah, it was like through the years too. So he acted different and wore different outfits from the 60s than when they got up to the 80s, 90s. He dressed different and he acted a little different. And I'm like, that guy really knows his job. He's professional,
Yeah.
And talking about the things, talking about the things going out. So I don't know if you have this on your radar to check out every now and then. Mm-hmm. Over in Warren is the W.D. Packard Music Hall. Mm-hmm. Now, this was actually given a donation over 100 years ago by W.D. Packard, the car magnate, he had lots of money. Well, instead of just, hoarding his money, he donated a trust fund back to the Warren to create this music hall and have free music for the community. And it's been over 100 years that they still offer this music. And we go to it a lot on the 4th of July. They do wonderful concert and then fireworks. And they do several concerts throughout the year. Well, they just had their Christmas spectacular. Yeah. And it was free. And I was looking around like, why is this place not packed? It was an hour and a half of Christmas music. And they had Mrs. Claus there singing. They had local bands. The drum line of one of the local bands was there. They had the dance studios dancing, the kids with not just
community thing. Everyone, that's very.
It wasn't just the dance studio didn't just have a pre-recorded thing that they danced to like my daughter had. They had an orchestra playing Christmas music that they were dancing to, and it was awesome. And I'm like, what? And you get parents that are like, oh yeah, spirit of Christmas is gone, but take your kids out to the damn thing. I mean, come on. I was like irritated, but the music itself was Fantastic. They're a professional band. They are not hacks. It is not a small little quartet. It is a full orchestra playing professional music at that level. And it was just fantastic all the way through.
Yeah. They're on my radar, and I don't, I'm in town 20 years, 22 years now with Colleen, and they haven't been on my radar. So I didn't know about them, but something I must have seen, like, who's coming there? Like Steve Hackett or Tom Petty cover band, or like some really good stuff. It's
I think Morse has been there. Yeah.
So just that, I'm hoping that my now being more aware of them, part of my talk at the end of this month is going to be about drinking from the fire hose, like I mentioned.
Yes.
That when you're given option glut, some part of it is just the overhead of keeping track of everything. So it isn't only that I look for things going on in Cleveland. If something's really good, we're willing to drive to Detroit, to Pittsburgh, to Columbus, to Warren, you know what I mean? To go see good bands. And it's kind of cool that some, like George Thorogood, just doesn't come to Cleveland, but he comes to the Northfield Casino.
Right.
So you kind of have to have a whole bunch of ticklers out there that I regularly read what's coming up at Playhouse Square, what's coming up at all these various different concert venues. And then I hope that I will notice in time to buy good tickets when I see, oh, Kansas is not coming into town, but they're going to be in Pittsburgh. Let's go see Kansas there, and stuff like that.
Right.
So we have, I think I mentioned, we have Straight No Chaser coming up just tonight, as a matter of fact.
Nice.
So we're going to see them live doing their Christmas music. And then our New Year's Eve plans this year are to go see the Cleveland Orchestra do James Bond music at
Yes.
Acoustically perfect place. I don't know, maybe we'll dress up because it's New Year's Eve, but the it really isn't about going there and, like, being snooty. It's about how cool is it going to be to have a cool New Year's Eve of this great music, and the orchestra is going to, hopefully the orchestra is going to be not just, they're going to be enjoying themselves. Everybody loves dun, 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 dun.
That's cool. Yeah. That's very cool.
Anyway.
So I think, oh man, there's so many things that go on. Like you said, I hit interest, and my cousin's like, oh, you're going to the Snoopy painting. I'm like, what Snoopy painting? Well, you marked it. I'm like, hold on. I go through Facebook and I just hit interested so I can see the stuff. And then, but if I say I'm interested in a music thing, they give me more music things. If I'm interested in a paint night, they get more paint night stuff. If I like peanuts, I get more peanut stuff. So it doesn't mean I'm going to it necessarily. Oh, well, and they got upset about it. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm just using the stuff,
Right. We've had a couple times where things I had put, hey, I'm interested. It was like 3 on the same night, and we had to choose one. And we actually kind of like left it till the end, so that it was just, what do you feel like doing? It wasn't
right.
Where I was so worried about getting tickets or getting good tickets. There really could be, we're just going to show up and take whatever they have. And we've had great success of doing that once in a while. Most of the time, I really like to I care about having good seats. I care about being in the center so the acoustics are good and being, I don't know, close, but within reasonable pricing. When a show ticket ranges from like 20 to 150, I don't mind paying the 20 and being way in the back because I'm in the place.
Right.
But then what I get is 6 more concerts, 7 more concerts for $20 each instead of paying one for 150. So I guess it's kind of, I don't think that's being cheap. I think that's being like, is it really that different? 7 times better to be closer at 150?
Yeah, I agree.
I'm okay with, it matters to me only in places where I know enough of the venues now that's like, I kind of can't see things at the State Theater without eating my knees, that the rows of seats are too close together.
Right.
So I have to make sure that I get aisle seats so I can angle my legs out, or else I'm uncomfortable for 2 hours.
Right. What's the point?
So, yeah.
So real quick, last weekend, we went down to Sugarcreek, which has the world's largest cuckoo clock.
We've been there. I kid you not. We were, I saw you went, like they had a whole lighting ceremony and everything. We were just there to see the clock. And there was this one store that was like, went back yards and yards and yards full of art stuff, Christmas stuff, et cetera, et cetera.
Was that the really cool one with the really great displays of all the little statues everywhere?
It must have been, because that's what lured us in, was like, this place looks like it has things I've never seen before. Let's go see what they have.
Yep. We went through the museum that talked about the Amish and the Swiss that came to the area and all of that. It was a really good time. My cousin was down there, we enjoy those types of things, but I was having to, like you said, choose, because Kent's up in Kent, they were supposed to be doing their light up ceremonies. And I'm like, I could go to that by myself or go here where family is.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, and I say luckily sarcastically, the old flour mill at Kent, that's a national landmark, caught fire on Friday
and
night.
shut that down.
So they did not do it. They're doing it this Saturday instead. So I'm like, whoa, well, the bright lining is I can do both. Selfishly, the thing burnt down and whatever. But
Right.
So there's one up in Chagrin Falls, I think, in the morning. They're doing a ceremony, a light up and little activities, and then going to Kent State. So it's like two of them I'm going to this weekend. But there's just so many of these around. We went to the Canfield Fairgrounds. Such a great light display. Everyone talks about Oglebay, going down to West Virginia, Oglebay, the lights and stuff.
We've done that twice now, and it was worth the drive the first time, and the second time it was like, well, now we've seen it, and it's not enough different each year. We're not doing this again.
Yeah, well, that's what I told my mom, because I took the kids, and it was like $50 a car or something, or $25 a person, something like that. It was like, oh my God, okay, got to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I can go to Canfield and drive through the lights. I can go to Alliance and drive through the lights. And there's like 4 or 5 places. I'm like, yeah, I'll spend the same as Oglebay. It's a lot closer, and I see pretty much the same stuff. So
we usually go to Neela Park. There's a couple places. There's a courthouse, and I'm trying to think what country, what city it's in, what county, a county courthouse that is supposed to be just like all the way around lit up. And
is that down in Cambridge?
Might be, because we were down in Marietta and we were going to drive up, and then it just was pouring rain. It's like, we're going to see it from the car. I kind of wanted to get out and walk around it and like join the carolers. No, we'll get drenched. Like, we couldn't do it.
It might be Cambridge. I did take the kids down to there. They do a like Dickens Christmas. They have everything decorated kind of Victorian, and they have people in Victorian dress. And it's another thing where, it's a little town. They do a little display, and all the shops are open with Christmas stuff, but everyone's like, Victorian era, like, so that's
on our list. Yeah. So it's kind of funny, by being out in California 8 to 14, I'm kind of giving up that block of time. But once I'm back from 15 to 25, Colleen and I are going to be, there's specific streets here in near us. Let's see, maybe it's not Westlake, probably Fairview Park, that like 3 streets in a row have every house is all decorated up. In Chicago, they used to do that on like Santa Street and Candy Cane Lane. They actually put little signs up. Here I always try to remember it, like it's Cadbury, Waterbury. It's I'll remember the street name eventually, but just it takes 20 minutes to get there, 20 minutes to go through it, and it really is just, wow, this is so cool. And once in a while, it's like, house, beautiful, and here's the dark Grinch house. Really in the middle of all this, you just couldn't like put some lights up anyway.
what's that meme that they show the one house, it's all lit up like Clark Griswold, and the house next to it says, yeah, the same thing as him, or something like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Or the better one I saw was this guy had his house all lit up. The neighbor just put a Grinch statue with a string of lights coming from the neighbor's house to the Grinch, like the Grinch was doing it. It's like, okay,
that's smart. That's very funny.
Yeah, I like that.
They almost always have an article like in Cleveland Scene or something like that, where they say, here's the neighborhood houses that it might be worth a drive to. And we try to hit 2 or 3, 4 of those, because some people they have 100,000 lights up on their house. Like, really? Yeah, it looks like you could land a plane on the amount of light that this house is putting out.
You can Google and find mapped loops of some of these neighborhoods with the lights to hit.
Okay.
And it integrates with Google GPS, so you can send it right to your phone then. And they're like all over the place, so you can find them that way.
Yeah. That's that. Some part of what I like, I don't know, I think that there's fewer things, like we love going out maybe on Christmas Eve, where all of our stuff is done. We got our food ready for Christmas Day. We got our gifts wrapped, whatever else it might be. And maybe it'll be to drop gifts off with friends. Maybe it'll be just to go out and kind of like go to the lakefront, or, you know what I mean? We don't even know what we want to do, but if the weather is reasonable, it's just so nice to be like, look at how nice our street is. Right next door, we live on Lakeland, and Arthur is the next one over. They do luminaria. They do the thing where they put like a candle in a bag and up and down the street, and it does look like landing lights for Santa. You know what I mean? But you're walking along, and the crunch of snow under your boots, it's beautiful.
So right there, that neighborhood was
Yeah.
featured in a Christmas movie called The Christmas Heart. If you have not seen it, it's based on a true story, and it was that neighborhood. If you have not seen it, see it. It's well worth watching. Basically, this family, their youngest or whatever, needs a new heart. And just as one comes available in Detroit, a snowstorm hits and they can't get the heart in time. And what you just said about the landing lights with those luminaries, that's what happened. Yes. If you have not seen The Christmas Heart, I think it was a Hallmark or one of those, but it's actually one of the better ones, I would say. And it's using a Cleveland neighborhood, true life based story. So watch that one.
Funny. I don't know that we have anything that we make a point of watching each year, except maybe for the Grinch, maybe Charlie Brown Christmas, and nowadays they're not on like on CBS where you have to see it the one time. They seem to have them on various different places. You can catch it on Hulu or whatever else it might be.
Or do like I did and buy the Blu-rays and own them.
And own them, and then you can throw it in whenever you want. That would be the smart way to go. Exactly. So we like, is it Love Actually that's a Christmas movie?
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
Story. That's heartwarming enough. You know what I mean? I like enough people in it, and it's sweet to see love blossom for the holidays. It's like, actually, I just read that someone said a really good combination is watch Love Actually and then watch Die Hard, because then you can see Alan Rickman getting his just desserts for hurting Emma Thompson.
My God, that's so funny. I love that.
So
I'm going to have to remember that. That's pretty good.
All right. I get to finally get my tooth. That'll be my Christmas gift.
There's a song about that.
It's weird. This is so much, I don't have phantom limb syndrome. I'm not missing something that has really affected my life. And yet it's been weird to feel incomplete for like a year and a half. You know what I mean? Especially when it's noticeable. When I smile, I usually smile big. And occasionally you see people do that little look down where they go from your eyes to your mouth. It's like, I don't want them to think I'm a hillbilly. I don't want to, you know what I mean? And yet, what can I do? When you get, since I was 16, when I had that tumor, I knew something was going to have to be done. And I guess I made it, 47 more years before finally I had to rebuild the bone, put in the implant, now I'm going to, they're going to put the permanent thing in there, and then I get my little tooth. But it's just, I don't know how it works psychologically, but you know what I mean? I feel much more for the people that they really did ever lose something, even more than I have. This really will be fixed. What if I don't know, people are talking about losing senses from COVID or something like that. I just can't imagine. I can't taste anymore. I can't hear anymore. Taste I could do without. It would actually probably help me to not be 280 pounds. Can you imagine not all the music that we just talked about to be like, I can't imagine it. That would be such a loss, such a terrible, So here's the good luck for Christmas that we don't go through any of that, and that we'll see.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, man.
Thanks. See you in a week.
See you in a week. Have a good one.
You have been listening to the Relentless Geekery podcast. Come back next week and join Alan and Steven's conversation on geek topics of the week.